Nice. I'm going to move into a little bit of rolling. We'll start with our shins and then we'll move to the mid-back. So to roll the shins, you're taking your tune-up balls inside the tote. So I've got them together like that. And I'll be rolling up and down the front of my shin. This is primarily on what's called the tibialis anterior. You can find that big bone on the front of your shin, that's your tibia, and the tibialis anterior sits just outside of that. So I'm on my left leg, I'm coming a little bit over to the left. That fleshy part, that's the muscle we're looking at rolling. So we do this coming down into a tabletop. You have two options. Option one, tune-up ball is on the ground. I'm starting just below my knee. If at any point the forearms or the wrists get really sore here, you can always bring your elbows down to a block or to the earth, or curl your hands into fists. The goal here is not wrist strengthening, but focusing on the shin. So feel free to change up that upper body position however you'd like. From here, starting just below your shin, I want you just to pause and press down. If you're craving a little more sensation, some folks like to put a block on the ground. The tune-up balls are sideways on the block like that. And you're hanging out in exactly the same shape, but because you've raised the block, the tune-up balls, the pressure is a little bit higher. So you decide. Deep breath in. Sigh it out. Nice and slow. Can we roll just the top half of this? So come halfway down your shin, and then start to shoot the heel back. We go slow. Yeah. Notice, are you clenching the jaw? Is the breath a little shorter, a little tighter? Can we maybe close the eyes down? Again, limit that sensory information to your brain by taking that sense away just temporarily. Noticing how removing that one source of information might allow you to tune into others, to really focus on how the front of your shin is feeling doing this work. If it's feeling like too much pressure, really easing off the shin and taking a bit more weight onto your hands and your right knee. You also always have the option to come up to that seated position and manually use your hands to create the pressure up and down the shin like this. So know that the beauty of this form of self-massage, this myofascial release technique, is its variability. You're in control of the amount of pressure, of the intensity of the sensation of what movements you take the whole time. In this upper half of your shin, do you notice if one spot feels extra spicy? Or maybe it all's spicy, or maybe you don't feel anything at all. Either way, can you pick one spot and pause? If you'd like, you might start to wiggle that shin or the ankle left and right. So you can see I'm just drawing my heel out to the left, out to the right. If you're in that seated variation, this looks like just rolling the tune-up balls towards the outside of the shin, across the tibia, and to the inside of the shin. Like that. Keep breathing. A little goes a long way. Remember, it's more about the amount of time we spend here than the intensity of the pressure. Yeah, I love seeing people do different variations. That's awesome. Let's take one more breath, working with that little side to side action. And then when we're ready, if you're in tabletop, you might crawl up your mat a bit. We'll move towards the bottom of the shin. So I'm rolling from the middle of my shin down to just above the ankle and back up. In some bodies, this is going to be more intense. In my body, this feels a little bit less icky than the upper part of the shin. But that's just how muscle sits on my frame, the history of posture and activities that I have that will dictate how my fascia carries maybe tension between the layers. And that's going to be different from us person to person. So that's why it's so important, again, to cultivate that ability to pick and choose your own adventure every single movement you do in a class, every option that's provided to you. Because you're the expert on your body and no one else can make those decisions for you with as much information as you have. Option here to start leaning your hips a little bit to the left if you're in that tabletop variation. just to start rolling more towards the outside part of the muscle here. So all I've done, I'll show you front on so you can see it. All I've done is start to shimmy my hips to the left a little bit. I'm letting the left side of the shin roll across the ball a little bit more. So leaning a little that way. Let's take a few more breaths here. We won't be here too long. And after your next exhale, take your shin off. Come back to your tabletop. Curl into your toes and lift up for downward dog. Notice how the right leg feels versus the left leg. You might lift one heel and then the other, pedaling the knees. You might perceive a difference, you might not. Sit the bum back down. You can point your toes back and behind you. And then flex the heels, toes tap down. Point the toes back and behind you. Let them tap down. Next time you do it, can you picture what's happening in your right leg, what's happening in your left leg? Does range of motion feel easier or harder on one side or the other? You can try pointing and flexing a few times. And then when you're ready, we'll grab those tune-up balls. We're switching sides. I'm going to turn around so you can see the side I'm working. I'm starting again, just a couple inches down from the knee. Tune-up balls are placed on the mat, on a block, or you're in that seated position, applying that pressure with your hands. We start slow, rolling just a couple inches up, a couple inches down. Our tibialis anterior contracts to pull your foot up. So when you think about it, every time you step, you're kind of lifting. I'll stand up so you can see. This stepping action, I set my foot down, my gastrocs, the back of my calf is working to create a lifting action. And when I step forward and my heel drops down and I pull the foot, front of the foot up, my tibialis anterior is working. So front of the shin works to lift the foot, back of the calf works to lift the heel. Those different motions mean if you walk, if you move, if you run, you probably have tightness on both sides of this muscle. However, it's really hard to stretch the front of your shin. It's much easier to stretch the calf muscle. Isn't it, Harvey? Oh my gosh, he's got so many little tibialis anteriors. Look at him and all his legs. Okay, anyways. What was I saying? Oh, ADHD, man. How's this feeling? Are we liking this? Does it suck? Are we indifferent to it? Yay. It's spicy, yeah. Yeah, spicy is a super common word for this guy. Again, this is a hard muscle to stretch, which means, one, your muscle fibers are probably a lot tighter than maybe the calves, which we stretch every time we do a down dog, a forward fold in yoga, which is like all the time. And also fascia. You know, fascia gets really tight when we ask muscle to expand and relax like we do when we're walking or running. Your fascia isn't as good at doing that. So it just gets kind of constricted around muscle that's moving. And that can create a sense of pain in the shins, shin splints. That can create a sense of tightness. Let's pause. An option to add that little side-to-side shimmy of the ankle. So for the shins in particular, myofascial release is a really great practice to help break down those places where fascia, so connective tissues, have got stuck to your muscle tissues, to help nudge a little bit more length into your fascia so that it can swell and relax when your muscle moves. Because remember, fascia is like a nesting doll, encasing your muscles, weaving within your muscles. So we want to be able to have it move easily around muscle to have pain-free movement. When you're ready, we'll shimmy down to the lower half of the shin. Always a good idea to drink lots of water after doing some myofascial rolling. As I mentioned, we we increase circulation to this area in our body. And all those fluids moving around can leave us with a sense of being kind of a little dehydrated. So that, I mean, hydration is always a good idea, right? If you haven't already yet, you might start to add that little side-to-side wiggle of the hip or that rolling towards the outside of the shin. And we'll find just 3 more breaths here. Yeah, that's a good point. If you're ever feeling discomfort in the bone itself, especially here when we don't have a lot of muscle tissue over bone, ease off the pressure. Come up to the other variation. We can bruise bone, so our goal is never really to do that. Let's take one more breath here. And then let it go. Roll off the tune-up balls and we'll come up to a seat, sending your legs out long in front this time. You might just gently slide the hands up and down your shins. Hi. Ooh. Harvey likes to play with the tune-up balls. And then coming up to a seated position, can you point your toes? Notice how that point feels. Is there maybe a little more range of motion than usual? And then flex your feet. Point your toes again, and flex. Close the eyes down, and notice, does it feel easier to move the right leg or the left leg? You can point and flex a few times, and just picture this muscle lengthening and tightening. Is there any resistance here? Or does movement feel a little easy? No right answer. Just again, practicing that skill of focusing our attention, of noticing what's happening beneath the skin in the body. When you're ready, let's inhale, reach the arms up and overhead. And exhale, forward fold. And nice and slow, we'll stack the spine. Good work.